In this series of works, I want you to think about the material that you're using for your drawing and the way that you're painting it. And so it's not only painting to make someone look real, painting to make it look like their likeness, but a quality about them that you want to capture in your work. And so let's look at a few works so that you have an idea of what I'm referring to. And so I'm going to share my screen and we're going to look at these portraits. Okay, these two portraits were done with ballpoint pen, a regular ballpoint pen. So that means no erasing was taking place with this. They sketched it out in pencil first, and then they went over it with ballpoint pen. I want you to really see like the hatching technique that the artist used and using the white of the paper as the highlights. And so a person like this gentleman right here, he has much darker skin. And so there's not much white of the paper showing. And that's one thing that's important that you want to think about when you're trying to show light and shadow, light coming onto your face and shadow in the other areas. If your face has deeper tones in it, much of the paper is going to be covered with your marks. And so he did a beautiful job with the drawing and then leaving the white area of the paper for the hair and really deepening the tones. The way you deepen your tones is by adding more marks. And so the more times you run your pencil over the paper, the pen over the paper, or the material, the deeper and deeper and deeper the values are going to be. Notice that the values on this man are the same that we talked about. Light coming down, hitting the top of the nose, casting a shadow on the face, hitting the cheeks and the top of the lip, but the neck being darker. And so first, the drawing part is very important, and then it's all about the mark making. Notice that this background is engaged and the darkness of the side of the cheek is emphasized by making a lighter background. But notice when the hair is light, it's better to make a darker background. So lots of times your background can vary depending on what's happening in your subject. So when your subject has a light area, the background should be dark. And when your subject has a dark area, your background should be light. And really think about making the marks that follow the shape. So notice how the marks go across the forehead, down the cheeks, across the shirt, and really try not to always make it like haphazard, really make the lines follow the shape. With this woman's portrait, notice the unusual composition. Notice that it's not as typical, that she's kind of off into the corner and kind of looking down. And those types of poses are really important and kind of might say something a little bit about this woman. And notice the cast shadows. That's what I really wanted you to see here. Notice the cast shadow of her whole entire body across the white of her shirt. Notice how her glasses are casted rounded shadows across her cheeks. Notice how the other part of the rim of her glasses is casting a shadow across her nose. Notice that her nose itself is casting a shadow onto her face. Those are crucial. That will make it look like actual light is coming down and hitting. And at first you're like, I don't want to draw a line across the face. That is what's going to make that look real. And notice when you're doing lines like this, it's hard to make like a lighter line when your material is either dark or light. And so what you have to do is make less concentrated lines. So notice like in the background, when the lines are farther apart, the value is lighter. But when the lines are closer together, your value is darker. And so the way to create light and shadow when using a material that is either blue or white, white of the paper, is by changing the spacing in between the lines. Fewer spacing makes darker values, more spacing makes lighter values. And all of these beautiful wrinkles and tones in her face really look like those jowls are coming in because even the jowl itself is casting a shadow onto the lip. Just gorgeous, just with a pen, a ballpoint pen. In this series of drawings, It's a scribble. You know, you wouldn't want to go home and say, oh, my art teacher taught me how to scribble today. But if you're scribbling like this, you're doing a great job. And so with scribbling, if you're a trained professional, you can't scribble like haphazardly. The more you draw, the more skill you're going to have, and even your scribbles are going to be beautiful. Like the pen and ink one that I just showed you, the more concentrated your lines are. So when, I think this is Samuel L. Jackson or somebody like this, when the lines are really, really, really close together, it's going to make these deep, dark lines. And when the lines are further apart, or if light is shining through, the white space is shining through, it's going to look even lighter. And so you can barely see any of the original sketch lines, but these are beautiful active lines. And so it's not necessarily about the person you're trying to communicate with these, it's more about the way that you're drawing. How are you actually drawing these in order to make the marks makes the drawing about the marks and not about the person. And so as you're deciding what you want to draw or who you want to draw, it's how you want to draw it. And so the first groups of drawings I showed you are very traditional portraits. These are now fun and whimsical and really active portraits. Is this your style? Really try to hone in on it. Maybe try to not even lift your pencil off the paper, but notice how it still has rendering form. It doesn't matter what marks you make. It matters where you put your marks. As long as they're nice and dark in the shadow areas and open and lighter, sometimes the direction of the marks doesn't matter. Like I said earlier, make your directions follow. So for every rule, there's a way to break the rules. And so I'm going to tell you, don't scribble, and then show you beautiful scribble drawings. I'm going to tell you, make your lines follow the shape of the face, and then I'm going to show you beautiful lines that don't follow the shape of the face. But the idea of intent. With this one, it's that chaos and busyness that's part of the appeal of this drawing. The next set of drawings are also done with lines. These are famous drawings by Vincent van Gogh, and he was a master of getting his lines to follow the shape and his lines to be varied. And so notice on this portrait on the left-hand side, the varying quality of the lines. Some lines are very light, some lines are thicker and darker. Some lines you can actually see it gets from thick to thin. Some lines are hatched. Some lines are broken. And so you might want to practice making a variety of lines and then decide what type of line would be more indicative to the area in which you're drawing. If you're making a sweeping hat going across his face, sweeping lines would be an appropriate way. Straight lines going down his outfit, across his face, but still making a variety. And so using broken lines, solid lines, thick line, thin lines, lines that follow shapes, lines that don't, can make for a beautiful drawing. It's just important to have a plan. You don't want to be randomly doing things just nilly-willy. You want to really think about this. As much as Van Gogh has this active brushstroke and active line work in his work, it is intent. He had intention with his artwork. And so it's not just any lines, it's sweeping lines that show the brim of the hat. And then lastly, what if you don't want any lines at all? So this is the famous artist Seurat, and he's known for his dots and pointillism. But look how gorgeous these drawings are with no lines at all. This is all just pure shading softness. And so as much as this isn't a crisp edge, you can see the light coming and shining, everything really soft. So as much as I might say, have active lines in your drawings, you might choose to have no lines in your drawings. And it's still a beautiful, gorgeous portrait, because what all of these drawings have in common is light and shadow depicting form. And that's what we want. And that's the most important thing I hope that you get out of this class, is understanding the structure of a face will then communicate that through light and shadow. So whether you have lines or no lines, it doesn't matter. It's all about your intent and drawing with intent. Okay, so let's see the last group of works we have.